Okay. So I have showed you some of Peter Wildman's work before. Um, I mean, it's almost abstract, isn't it? But you could tell it's a landscape. And I just wanted to look at that and think about how do you know it's a landscape? There's a horizon, yeah. Light and a horizon. That they are two key things in any landscape, really. Um, the light's really important. I mean, other than that, it could, if I do just to block off the bottom half, it could be a complete abstract painting, couldn't it? But it is that horizon that gives you that. And the colour as well. The colour of the light is very much like a sunset and the cloud colours. So I mean, that's what reads as a landscape. But there are no details in there. He's not painted houses or trees or even people. It's colour and light that gives us a feel of a landscape. You don't have to get into being really laborious and painting details to create an atmospheric landscape. Um, in fact, if you imagine there was a tree in there with lots of leaves on it, it would just destroy the image, wouldn't it? Wouldn't work at all. But it's very tempting when you're painting a landscape and you've not done it before. Start putting in things that you know are in landscapes. It's really hard to stop yourself doing that because you want to put recognizable features in there. Okay. You can, yeah. Yeah, he will have mixed it with turpentine or, yeah, and he can use it you can make oil paints like watercolor almost on top of, yeah. That's been built up in layers. He will have put a wash down and then you can see where there's areas of thin paint, like this grey's quite thin, and then clearly almost really impasto where this blue is, possibly put on with a palette knife. Um, there's various sort of techniques for applying the paint that have been used. And it gives it texture and variety and interest, all of those marks. And then, yeah, when it's finished, he could have quite easily got some really dilute paint and flicked it onto there. I mean, some of these spatters and runs and dribbles might have been from the initial stages. There is an artist, if you want to look him up, his work is incredible, named Renato Mucillo. He's a Canadian artist, and his work, it looks photorealistic, but he starts like this. He'll start by spattering the paint on. He'll get rags and he'll smear the paint around. He will allow the paint to run. And what he does is he's then very selective about what he keeps and what he gets rid of. So he'll see some effects in there where there is really rich textures and things. You might think, oh, I quite like that effect. I'll keep it. It might suggest sunrise or something. And then he builds up, and by the end of it, they look like photographs. They're incredible, but it's done in a very loose way. Um, and I mean, I really love his work. It's right down my street. Very very sort of realistic. But he doesn't label it Mucillo, Muccillo, I think it is. Um, Renato Mucillo. I'll find some of his work. He does really dramatic skies and really fabulous. So like I said, is very precise, but he starts off in a similar way because you can get if you try to create these effects deliberately, and you're quite laboured about it. You imagine painting this bit of sun here in the cloud, it would look laboured. It's almost he's created that through accident, as it were. It's a bit like working with watercolour. He's smeared the paint on and he's thought, oh, I quite like that, and he's kept it. It's a difficult thing to do, really difficult thing to do. I'll show you another example. It's another one of his. In that one, it's quite interesting. When we first discovered this artist, Jen and I, we loved his work. We sent him an email, and it was this painting. We sent him an email. I said, "Oh, we're really interested in buying this. Yeah, 36 grand, please." So, no, so I tried to copy how he paints it. But again, you can see this side where the sun is, how that's just a run of paint down there, dribble, isn't it? What I like about this one, I mean, I talked earlier about not painting trees in and things like that, but he has here. He's painted those branches in. That really helps you read the image, doesn't it? Much more. And it works quite well. But if you'd have overdone that, it would have just ruined the atmosphere. Because the atmosphere is created through the mystery. You know, there's some bits down here, it's very ambiguous. You don't really know what's going on. You can't see the edge of the water. You can't see the riverbank. It's not defined. One part merges in with another part. Um, but we can still read it because we've got these trees here and we've got that slight horizon along there that just tells us it's a landscape. Okay, so keeping some ambiguity in the painting really adds to atmosphere. If you tell the reader everything, and you tell the viewer everything, you know, there's no mystery, there's no interest. Um, it's about mark making as well. That's really important. So that's another Peter Wellman one. Right, we go downhill now because this is one of mine. So that's one I painted, and that wasn't from any reference. That's just from my imagination. And the way I did this one was just literally playing on the canvas with paint, moving the paint around, wiping it off, and then it suggested to me the way the paint had. There was a hill down here, so then I'd begin to paint that in, and there was a patch of light that made me think of the sun bursting through the clouds. So then I painted this water in here, and to get this effect of the sun on the side of the mountain, I painted the mountain in brown and I just wiped it off. So all you can see is the canvas showing through there. There's no actual paint on there. It's just where I wiped the paint off. And then I started to add lakes and things like that. So it's completely from imagination, but it's loads of fun doing this. It really is. There are very little details in it, but again, it reads as a landscape. So I'm afraid you've got a few of mine to look at now. Sorry, that's oil. Yeah, that's oil. That was done in one go, so that's an Alla Prima painting. Just, I think what I did here is, yeah, I painted. I mean, this is about 5 years ago when I painted this. Um, I'd made a dark area at the top, and then I remember I'd sort of got a tissue and scraped some paint off there. Oh, that's the next one. Sorry, scraped some paint off where the sunlight's coming. And that gave me the idea of the sun coming through the clouds. So then I painted over that with more opaque paint. And then I worked on the clouds a little bit more. Okay, so if you notice those clouds, they deliberately were painted to look like clouds. But it was that initial suggestion when I wiped that mark off that made me think of the clouds. And then I worked over the top of them. Okay, that is white paint on there. Yeah. The only bit is that you see with its canvas is this bit here where the light is on the hill. That was on a canvas, yeah. No, that one was on canvas, I think. It's irrelevant, really, the surface that you work on. You know, some people just prefer the softness of a canvas when you're working. I tend to work on a mixture of both, whatever's available, really. This next one was a plein air painting done in the Lake District, so this was done very quickly. Again, it's just paint wiped off. I mean, this I painted it really quickly, and as I was painting it, the sun came out, as it always does in the Lake District, for about 30 seconds. You know? So all I did is wipe that off, and that again is canvas there, where the white is. You know, there's a hint. I don't know why it does that. Let me switch this off. Goodbye. Goodbye. So that is there was a bit of orange that was on there, and I just wiped away the paint to reveal the canvas, and that suggested the light coming through the mountains. But again, there's a lot of ambiguity in here. For the trees on the side of, I don't know if you know Derwentwater. This is from Keswick. I was at the Keswick end, and there's like beaches and there's trees and little islands and things, and they would literally just smudges of paint. Oh crikey, that one, Cerulean in the Sky. And then it's probably a Prussian blue for the rest of it. Yeah, browns and very very limited palette because I think if you overdo the palette and you put too many colours in there, it just starts to look like candy floss, you know. And I was more concerned with getting the sense of the light and atmosphere. So keep it very simple and don't have loads of colours. You do. I don't know if you notice there's complementary colours in there, so there's blues and oranges, which work quite well together. Oh, it depends on the mood. I mean, it's cerulean blue, I would say. Cerulean blue is a great blue for the skies. So I think the next one, another plein air painting. Yeah, that's another plein air painting. I want to talk about the brushwork. So this was done over at the fields behind Ankelo, near the canal. Do you know where? Who's the guy who's just selling his farm? That's Adrian. Yeah. Adrian commissioned me to do a painting down by the river because obviously he's selling all the land. So that one is now hanging on in his house somewhere. Um, and he used to play in these fields at the back. So that's why I painted that. But it was the one thing I want to talk about is brushwork. So, for example, these trees and bushes here, when you're painting outside, you don't have much time, maybe 2 hours. So the way you put the paint on is crucial, and the way you move the brush around. So I can't really zoom in. You might be able to. I don't know if it shows up on there. Can you see the brush mark? Yeah. There are lots of ways of applying paint. Sometimes the paint's quite thin, sometimes it's quite thick. You'll drag the brush through the paint and it will leave marks. Moving the brush in different directions for the trees really does suggest foliage. You know, you can't paint every leaf on a tree. You've got to suggest it. And again, the other thing that's really important is getting the values right. I mean, I talk to death about values. I'm really aware of that. But the lights and the darks, that'll create the atmosphere as much as the detail. Very easy to get drawn into doing detail because you feel in control. But honestly, values make the difference. So you can clearly tell it's a sunny day because of the very dark shadows and the very light bits of grass. That's what does it. Okay. And if you want to learn to develop these techniques, painting outside the landscape is the absolute best way of learning because you're forced to work quickly and economically and keep things simple. It's the best way. As soon as you sit down in your studio or at home to paint, you know, you've got hours of time and you can start fiddling and fussing. And that's when you just ruin the work. Sometimes going outside and being really quick and bold is the best way of learning. I would say when you first start doing it, you're probably only going to get 1 in 10 that's any good. But you are learning by doing it. You know, that's the important thing. If you come away disappointed every time, you know, and you're more concerned about having a finished piece that you'll hang on the wall, you know, you will be disappointed every time. You've got to go out thinking, I'm just going to go out there and enjoy being outside, and I'm going to make a mess on the canvas, and I might get something that's worth keeping. But of course, like everything, the more that you do it, the better you get because you learn what works and what doesn't work. Okay, really, really basic palette. Those greens will have been. I'll have a I have probably a one green that I use, which will be a phthalo green, which is really, really intense green. And then there'll be loads of ochres and yellows. I'll use cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, obviously cerulean blue for the sky, um, burnt umber, but the greens will have been mixed with the yellows and blues, and then I will have, depending on how intense I want the green, I'll put the phthalo green in there. So these greens in the foreground are quite intense, so they'll have more phthalo green in them. There'd be like a burnt sienna or a burnt umber. That would have given me the red. For the shadows that are in this sort of yellowy grass here, that's like a burnt umber. And the burnt umber mixed with white or yellow ochre to get these pinky type colours. No, no, no. It'll be the burnt umber or burnt sienna possibly in there. Or no, sorry, transparent oxide red, which is like a brown. I haven't got any here. It's like a burnt sienna, um, and that gives you this kind of pinky yellowy colour in there. Okay, very very simple though. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That'll be two, if that probably. I mean, I did that day when I was out there. I did 3 paintings for him, and I thought I let him pick one he wants. Um, you have to work really quickly because the light's always changing. Okay. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get too technical about it, but essentially, when you have a warm light, like this is clearly a summer's day, you get a yellow light in summer, your shadows, for anybody who's read the Richard Smith book will know this, your shadows appear blue. Okay. So down here, underneath here, there'll be quite a lot of blue in that shadow. Okay, but then often, if you once your eyes adjust, if you're looking into the shadows under a tree, for example, there might be a bench under the tree, and there might be a darker shadow underneath the bench. So you get shadows within shadows. Okay. Well, the light under the tree, and I'm going to get really technical now, I know I am. The light under the tree is going to be a blue light. It's going to be a cool light. The shadows within that will be warm. Because generally, when you get a cool light, you get warm shadows. When you get a warm light, you get cool shadows. So you can have, it's always the opposite. So sometimes if I'm painting, like I'm doing a painting at the moment where I've got a path and it's sunlit and then there's some trees behind it that are casting shadows. Well, the main shadows are blue, but then within there, shadows within shadows are warm. Gets really mind-boggling after a while. I don't want to go too much into that. If you keep it in your mind that when it's a really, really warm day, sunny day, shadows tend to be blue, purples and blues. When it's a cool day, like a grey light, shadows tend to be warmer. So you can make the shadows with browns and greys. Okay, that's generally what happens. Like everything, it gets more complex the more you start to look into it. But if you've read the Richard Smith book, it goes into it's almost a chapter on colour temperature and things like that. Okay. It's a book by an article, Richard Smith, Schmid. It is knocking around. I think Kathy's got it. It's on loan going around the room. It's like 200 quid the book is. Alla Prima too, yeah. Somebody did tell me actually you can download a PDF version of it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a fabulous book, but very expensive. Okay. Yeah. The brushes, I tend to be quite limited. I use quite rough, coarse hog hair brushes when I'm painting outside because there's going to be no detail. A lot of this might have been done with a knife as well. So I might have just smeared paint on with a knife. For the background, obviously, you want a smooth, just that'll be flattened out with a fan brush probably. Um, the way I generally work when I'm working outside is put a thin layer down to get the lights and shadows in, and then go over in impasto with a hog hair brush just to make the more richer marks. Okay, right. That's another one of mine. Now that one was done inside. That's yeah, that's sold as. That went straight away. That one did, yeah. That's just over the fields again. Like I say, yeah. But again, you've got to keep it simple with landscape. It's literally about the light in that painting. It's just, there's no detail in there at all. It's just the light, really. So if you get, I mean, when I go do these plein air courses, um, I talk to the students about the first thing that grabs your attention, because when you go outside to paint, you've got landscape everywhere. It's almost like everything could be a painting. You're looking around and you think, oh, I could make a painting of that. I could make a painting of that. They're just everywhere. And one of the hardest things to learn to do when you start to paint outside is picking the subject. What happens is you go out with all your kit and you're wandering along and you think, oh, that'd make a nice painting. But there might be a nicer one just down the lane. So then you walk on a bit further. And then 2 hours later, you're still walking around looking for somewhere to paint. So what you've got to do is the first thing that catches your eye, you think that's nice, just think, what is it about that I like? It could be, I mean, obviously this was painted inside because you can't paint a sunset outside. You just light changes so quickly. But the first thing that catches your eye is generally something to do with the lighting, and you just have to go with it and try to retain the thing that caught your eye. It could be as simple as a shadow cast across a path or something. And that's what you've got to capture in your painting. It's not all the details, it's not the bench, it's not the trees, not the birds flying in the sky. It's just probably something as simple as that. And that's what you've got to focus on when you do the painting, retaining that one thing that caught your eye. And that's what will create atmosphere in a picture. It's got nothing to do with detail. Okay. So these are some paintings. I've showed you Stuart Clark's work before. And I think she does this so well. She keeps it so simple, but the atmosphere is phenomenal. You know, it's just very, very simple. You can see the brush marks. There's no detail in it at all, but it's got fabulous atmosphere. But we can read the image just because of those little hills in the distance. There's a sharply defined hill that allows us to read the image. I've got 2 or 3 of these to show you. Another one there. Again, that one bit of a hill down here tells us that it's a seascape. Oil, they're oil. Yeah. This is her recent work. Not quite as dramatic as she used to be. That one's got a little bit more detail in it. Oh, and I wanted to mention with these, we talked about the horizon being important. Make sure your horizon is straight and make sure it's horizontal. You know, I think I've told you before, I did a painting once and I spent ages on it. And then the first comment I got on Facebook was, oh, it'd be nice if the horizon was level. And quickly delete the post. So, yeah, and that's the rule of thirds. I mean, that's just below a third of the way down, but this sort of grey band is a third of the way down, isn't it? That's an important point, yeah. So you could have a high horizon, it could be up here. You know, generally, you don't want to put the horizon in the middle of the painting. So that's quite important with that. But yeah, I mean, she's obviously used a ruler on there to get a perfectly straight white line. But it makes a difference having a straight horizon. Zara Stewart Clark, Scottish. Fabulous work, though. Okay. Sounds like a young name, doesn't it? I don't know. Right, so I've got some reference images. I'll allow you to choose from, but you might want to just do something from your imagination. You know? So these are just to give you a starting point. They're not to be copied, as it were. Okay, so you can see quite dramatic lighting. Okay, that's quite a nice one. Nice light in that one. Nice light in that. I've got a few. If you want to find one on your phone, that's fine. But what I'm going to do now is just try to talk about how I would work. Okay. Well, I'm working on a canvas here. Get some paint out. I'm going to start with a bit of blue. I don't know how this is going to appear on the screen. My go-to colours for landscapes to get the drama and the light they tend to be browns and blues. They're kind of complementary colours. They work really well together. I haven't got a white. I don't think there's no white in any of these. I don't worry about it. I don't worry about it. I might not need any. I'm more interested. All I'm going to talk about really. Oh, thank you. That's great. All I really want to talk about is how I'm going to get the paint on the surface. So I'm going to try and do a very, very quick sort of painting from imagination. I've got a tiny bit of this solvent. I don't want a huge amount. I do want to thin the paint down a little bit. I'm taking some of the brown. And I warn you now, I haven't practiced this. It's completely unprepared, so I don't at this point in time know what I'm going to do. So shouldn't really say that. There's a tiny bit of Gamsol just to thin it down so that it's, you know, as I say, quite thin. I just want to get some values in to start with. I'm not even fussed about the colour. I want light and shadow. So let's say we're going to have a horizon down here somewhere, and I want some value in the sky. That's not quite dark enough. I'm going to need more paint. Already the marks that are going on here are going to start suggesting things to me where clouds might be. I'm not even thinking about where to put them on, but it will start to suggest light and shadows. Okay, and you have to, when you're doing this, I mean, I actually find this far more creative than sitting down and copying something laboriously. You can be really creative doing this. This is literally just playing with paint. It's very thin. You see how quickly I covered the surface there. Now, I might want it, that suggested that darker area. I might just make that even darker still. You're probably thinking, oh my word, what a mess. Okay. So now I'm thinking if it's going to be a landscape, we're going to have a horizon somewhere around there. This is going to be either a sea or the land. I don't really know yet what it's going to be. Let's get a bit of green into it, make it into. Well, get that window. That's burnt umber. Burnt umber. Very thin. The painters. That's important. And you can see we've got a lot of the brush marks are being kept. You want variety. Okay, so now it's all fairly even over there. So yeah. So I'm going to take a dry brush now, because that brush has got loads of paint on it. A dry brush will start to move some of this around a little bit, and you'll see it starts to soften. And I keep drying it off. You can blend the paint, and it'll start to soften edges, and then you'll have other edges that are clearer. And then if you want to, you can go in with a paper towel and start to take. This is how that landscape of Derwent Water that I did is exactly how I would have worked. Like I said, I had about 2 hours to do it. So you start like this, and you start to shape things. I mean, obviously, I've got some sort of reference in front of me there because I've got the landscape. I want the light at the back here somehow. So actually, see these brush marks here? They're suggesting to me sort of cliffs or something. Sorry. You can get. It does stain. Sometimes that can work in your. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes it can work in your advantage though. No. So see here, right? That's stained now. There's paint on there. That I can't get back. So if I want that to be pure white, I'd have to put pure white on afterwards. All I'm doing at the moment is shaping where I want the light and shadow. Okay. So we've got this sort of headland here. I might start to work back into that a little bit. So now the paint is going on a little bit thicker, and I'm starting to just define that a bit more. I don't want to labour it too much because, as I say, you often need some ambiguity in the painting, you know. Now I need a soft brush. In some areas you might want to soften. If you use one of these soft brushes, that will really soften some of these edges. I mean, how long have I been working on it? You know what I mean? So I'm softening these edges now. I don't want the hard brush marks here because I want the sky to be quite sort of, I don't know. Well, clouds are quite misty, aren't they, and soft. Now I do need a white. And I'm going to get some sort of orangey yellow. Cad, yeah, cad yellow. I don't know how's this going to look on here. The thing is, these paints, as I've said before, they don't go on as well as you'd like. The best oil paint is by Michael Harding, but you're talking take another mortgage out for the paint. So I put some of this colour on, but I might. It's not white. It's like a pinky kind of yellow. This is neat. It's really thick. The paint is okay. So I'm using the paint really neat. But then if I wipe this off again, it will, as Kathy said, it will start to stain. Put blue in there. It's just an ultramarine blue, but it might give me some sky coming through these clouds. Now I'm going to start shaping some clouds here. How's it looking? It's still a right bloody mess. Oh. Is it? Right. I'm gonna need more blue in this. I can't see because there's a light shining on there. Oh, I could start to shape clouds and all sorts here. And you can, I mean, you can fiddle around, like I say, and you can end up getting too fussy. I hope you saw. I mean, it's it's very, very quickly you can create atmosphere between light and dark. And the mark. Well, how much you offering? I saw her. Yeah, I'm undermining my own work here, and I show you how quickly they can be done. When you go out painting outside, though, you can get these effects very, very quickly. Of course, you have to. The key is, I mean, I made this up and I just chose any old colour. The key is the lightness and the darkness. They are really important, and choosing colours carefully. I mean, we go back to Peter Wildman's again. Yeah, so limit the palette. You don't need loads and loads of colours. Go back. I mean, we've obviously got all of these. Colour in that is everything, isn't it? That turquoisey blue for the water is just stunning. But the complementary colours as well. You've got that turquoisey blue next to these yellowy orangey. They really work well together. The red, again, that's a completely sort of random, yeah, almost. It's off the wall colour. To me, the red doesn't really work as well as the other colours. It's very, very bold. Yeah. My personal preference are these sort of turquoises and oranges, which are, yeah, the autumnal colours. He may have done, yeah. I mean, that one he stuck more to. That's stunning. That's the one I want to buy. But I mean, here, that's another trick with landscape. The further something away is, you get what's called atmospheric perspective. So the trees are painted with like a violet because it makes them feel as though they're further away. Bright colours like yellows tend to come forward, and purples and blues don't recede. Yeah, I mean, there's odd spatter of green on there. There's no detail, is it? Literally doing what I'm doing there, playing around, moving it around. It's really messy, but hopefully you'll enjoy doing this. You don't have to worry about your drawing skills. There's no sort of precision in it. You can be really creative. Now, I've got some reference images that you can use as a starting point. You may have brought your own. You might want to go online and look for something. But really, just have a play with creating atmosphere. Okay. Does that make sense? Anybody got any questions? How do you get? Ah, they're all here. They can just stick on the side. They're all there. Clean all this mess. Beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. No, but it's not. You can read it. You know, it's clear the shapes that he's putting in there. It's like this. You know, this bit of a headland. I mean, you could tell it's a landscape because there's something in there that gives it away. You know, that's all you need. I'll make it larger. Hang on. Oh,